All right. So what I wanted to do today is we've got another tutorial we'll look at. And then, so let's see, Thursday, we'll start on a tutorial Thursday with you guys where we'll take 2 days to work on the tutorial Thursday. So Thursday and the next Tuesday, I'll give you 2 entire days. There's a tutorial under advanced techniques called advanced design, where it's pretty in depth. Takes some time. If you get done early today and wanted to start on that early, you could. But at any rate, it's try to be here Thursday and next Tuesday if you can. Right? If not, let me know, and we'll figure out how to kind of get you caught up. What I want to do today is talk a little bit about 3-dimensional sketches in Solidworks. So we talk about 3-dimensional sketches in Solidworks. Now, typically sketches are 2-dimensional. You have to, and basically you have to intentionally, I'm going to capitalize, intentionally make a sketch 3-dimensional. It's doable, and there's not too many situations where you would need to. And there's really not too many situations where you would need to, but let's talk about how you would do that. And so if I go into SolidWorks here, I'm going to start a new part file here. And wait on SolidWorks for a minute. Here it comes. Okay. So I've got a new part file now. If I were to start a sketch, so I'm just going to start a sketch, and front plane is just fine. So start a sketch on the front plane. Now remember, last time we said that there are, and I told you, you're going to get tired of hearing me say this, and I'm okay with that. There are 2 ways to identify, or I'm sorry, 2 ways to define a sketch. Does anybody know what those were? Does anybody remember what those were?
Definite and indefinite.
No? Yes, that would be integrals. Definite and indefinite are integrals. 2 ways we define a sketch. Does anybody remember this? So if I want to specify the size and location of something, what's one way I can do that? Smart dimensions. All right, so a smart dimension is one way that I can define a sketch. Does anybody remember the second one? We kind of talked on it briefly. We really haven't done too much with this one. It's okay. There's another way we can, what's called relations, right, which is basically you're defining the geometry. So I can put in either a smart dimension and or I can put in relations. So let's see how we do that in SolidWorks. So I've started a sketch, just a simple basic sketch on the front plane. If I go grab the line tool and I start drawing lines here. So if I put my cursor right here on that origin, notice there's that little yellow symbol pops up, right? And what it's saying right now is if I click right now, it's going to put a relation where this end point of the line is on the origin. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to click and put that end point of the line on the origin. And then I'm just going to draw a line kind of off over here in space. I'm going to make it about 2 inches. Doesn't have to be exact because I can put a smart dimension on it later. Let's draw a line about 2 inches over here. All right, and then I'll draw a line this way, again, about 2 inches. And notice if I put it here, it says, hey, do you want it perpendicular to this line? Or do you want it horizontal with that or perpendicular to that line? Or no, I'm just going to roughly about down here, somewhere about 2 inches, where it's not forcing any other relations. Then I'm going to draw about 2 inches up, back up this way. And notice what it's doing right now. It says, hey, if you click right now, I will drop this line parallel to this other one. If you want it parallel, just drop it here. And that's fine. I don't mind that. I'm going to drop this line in parallel about 2 inches to that other one. And then I'm just going to come back and up and close it. So now I've got a closed polygon. It's not a rectangle. It's just a four-sided generic polygon. All right. But I have defined 2 lines to be parallel. Now, what I'd like to do is a couple of things. One, we've mentioned a few times, release the tool. I'm done drawing lines for the moment. So I'm going to tell it I'm done drawing lines. Hit check here. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell this line, so I'm going to click on this line, and I'm going to hold down Control and click on this line. I'm going to get both of those lines selected. So again, if you hold down Control, you can select multiple things. And I'm going to tell those 2 lines to be parallel. So now it says over here in the manager, it's saying, do you want to add a relation? Yes, I would like to make those parallel. So now those 2 lines are parallel. So that's adding some geometric relations to my sketch to define it. Now I'm going to throw some smart dimensions on here. I'm going to click on smart dimension. I'm going to click on this line. I'm going to make this line. Now notice what I've got some options here. I can define the horizontal length of this line. I can come over here and define the vertical length of that line, or I can define the actual length of the line. All right, so depending on where I drop the smart dimension, it's going to control what am I defining. I want to define the overall length of this line. I don't want to define its vertical or horizontal. I just want to define its actual length. We'll make this one 2. And come over here to this side, and I'm going to make this line 2. Now this one is because I've set all these sides parallel, this is what we call a parallelogram. And so I don't have to define these other dimensions. If it's been a hot minute since you had high school geometry, I understand you may not remember that, but you do not have to define these lengths. That's already defined by these parallel sides. Now basically what I'm trying to do here, I should have mentioned this earlier, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to draw a cube in an isometric format, right? So if it's isometric, that means the angle between these 2 lines should be 120 degrees. So I can click on this line, and I can click on this line, and instead of giving me a length, notice what it does. It says, oh, you're defining 2 lines that can't intersect. You want to define the angle between them. Yes, that's what I'd like to do. So I'm going to call that 120 degrees. And that defines the angle between the 2. Now remember last time we said the things that are blue are they're not fully defined. They can exist in more than just what's being displayed right now. So since this whole thing's blue, if you try to click and drag on something, I don't know what's going to move. Okay, there it is. So notice this whole thing can rotate. Okay? So it can exist in a variety of ways and still meet all of the criteria I've specified. So what I do need to define is I don't want this thing to rotate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go add underneath the line, if you'll drop see it's got a little drop down on the line here. If I drop that down, I've got an option to do a center line, right? And a center line is, traditionally we would use a center line for symmetry. Doesn't have to be. You don't have to use a center line in SolidWorks only for symmetry. It can simply just be a construction line. And so there's a check here for construction. And so if I draw a center line out here horizontal, just any arbitrary distance, okay, and that's all I need is just the one. So I'm going to hit escape, tell it I'm done drawing lines. And then I'm going to put a smart dimension between that center line and this line. And I can say, well, those should be 30 degrees apart. And that locks this whole thing up now. Okay? So it's all fully defined. And I've defined basically the top of an isometric cube, 120 degrees or 30 degrees between all lines. And we can go from there. So I'm going to finish out the rest of this cube now. So I've got this squares defined. Let's draw some more of it. So I need to draw a face here and a face here. So I'm going to draw an isometric cube. So I'm going to start drawing more lines. And so from this corner, I'm going to go down. And notice right now, if I drop it, it's going to make it vertical. That's okay. I want this to be vertical, about 2 inches or so. Right? And then I'm going to make one down this way. And see here it's saying, hey, do you want it to be parallel to these other lines? Yeah, actually, that'd be great. So let's make it about parallel to these other lines, about 2 inches. And then I'm just going to lock this back up here and finish that off. And then I'll come over here on this side, and I'm going to make a line straight down. And it says, hey, do you want to make it perpendicular or vertical? That's fine. Yeah, make it vertical. And then I need to finish off over here. So I didn't get it exactly lined up. I could have been more careful and got it perfectly lined up, but part of what I'm trying to do today is show you how to add relations when you need to, right? So this line right here, I'd like this one to be, see how these two are vertical. I'd like this one to be vertical. So I can just click on this line here and I can specify, hey, this should be vertical. And that forces it to be vertical, okay? And these lines over here, probably just by definition, going to end up parallel with these others. Let's see, if I throw, done with this line here, done with the line. If I throw a smart dimension right here, and I say that is 2, let's see, what am I missing? I think I just need to tell it this line, and if I hold control and grab this line and make these 2 parallel. Now it looks like that's fully defined that sketch. All right, so what appears to be a 3-dimensional isometric cube, I'm going to exit my sketch here. Okay. And so you can see there, that's, if I were to draw by hand an isometric cube perfectly, it would look something like this, right? That, to us, that looks like a 3-dimensional object. Until we go to rotate this. And you can see what's happening here, right? Is it to us, from this view, it looks 3-dimensional. But this is a simple sketch drawn on the front plane. So if you view it from the side of the front plane, it flattens down. Right? This is not a 3-dimensional sketch. If you want to draw an actual 3-dimensional sketch like we talked about, right? Again, sketches, if you just grab a sketch, it's going to be a 2-dimensional sketch. You have to actually force it to be 3-dimensional. And the tutorial we're going to look at today is actually going to walk you through how to do that. I'll give you the basics here real quick. I'm going to hide this sketch right now, right? So that's something we haven't talked about yet. If I right click on something, sketch in this case, notice there's this eyeball that's got the line through it. And if you hover over it, it says that's hide. I can hide just about anything in the manager. I can hide. Or if something is hidden, I want to bring it back. Most of the time I can right click on it. And if the eyeball doesn't have the line through it, it's just the eyeball. That is show. That will turn it back on. All right. So for now, let's just let's make a 3-dimensional sketch. Now I'm going to change my view back to isometric. So I'm going to go to my view type and I'm going to click on isometric. And you can see the X, Y, and Z axis down here in the bottom of the graphics area. That's showing an isometric. And let's draw a cube in 3 dimensions this time. So under sketch, notice sketch has a drop-down menu. Most of these tools have drop-down menus. If I drop sketch down, I have an option for either a regular sketch, which we just made, or I've got an option for a 3-dimensional sketch. I have to force it to give me a 3-dimensional sketch if that's what I want. Now, and again, we mentioned earlier, the tutorials have already shown you how to exit a sketch. So the tutorials moving forward are going to just simply have, there will be a sentence with no pictures a lot of times that says, close the sketch and finish and do something, right? They're not going to tell you, go click on the exit sketch button. You're going to have to know how to close a sketch. 3-dimensional sketches you close those a little bit different. Notice if I just click on the sketch button, it doesn't close the 3-dimensional sketch like normal. This is a 3-dimensional sketch. I have to actually drop down the menu and click on the 3D sketch button again, and that will close it, okay? 3D sketches are different than 2D sketches in a couple of ways. That's one. How you open and close it is one. How you draw them is a little different also. So if we look at that, if I grab the line tool here, again, I've got a 3D sketch open. If I grab the line tool, and what I can do with lines, notice right now I've got this X, Y. And I know it's small for you guys to read, but I've got an X, Y there next to the line. That means right now it's going to draw lines only in the X, Y plane. All right, so if I draw, right now, if I click and draw a line here, right, now it's telling me, hey, do you want this to be in the X direction? Okay, that's fine. Right? Now, if I draw something, and let's say I draw it over here, and it looks to us like I'm drawing this line basically in the Z direction. It is not. All right, so escape. All right. It's not. See, this is the Z direction here. That line is not in the Z direction. It looks like it in 2 dimensions. That line is not in at all in the Z direction, even though it looks like I drew it. That's a 2-dimensional projection. It is deceiving. Right? So I'm gonna delete that one. I don't want that one. Just bring the lines back up. Now, right now I've got the XY on there, and that means I'm only drawing lines in the XY direction, despite what it might look like. So if I click from the origin, first point from the origin, and I draw down roughly 2 inches, and notice this little yellow thing, and I know you guys can't read it from your seats, but that's saying X. That's telling me if I click right now, this line gets drawn in the X direction. And that's actually what I want. I want to draw a line in the X direction about 2 inches. And then if I come back in the Y direction, it's kind of giving me a guide there to try to actually, it looks like it's in the Z, but it's not. When you're drawing lines, if you'll hit the Tab key, and your tutorial is going to walk you through, it will change the direction that you can draw those lines. You can only draw the lines, I think you can turn that off, but you can only draw lines in 2 directions. And so now I want to draw 2 inches in the Z direction. And so if I drop it there, that's going to draw this 2 inches in the Z direction. I'm going to draw back up in the X direction then. So again, I've tabbed over until I get the ZX direction, roughly 2 inches in the X direction back. And then I don't know if I can, looks like, yeah, I'm going to lock those 2 together there. And finish it out and basically finish a contour out. Now I'm going to draw a face here. I'm going to draw a face here. Well, let's draw this face here. Now I need to be able to draw this face here is going to be in, in the YZ direction. So I'm going to tab until I get lines only in the, in the XY direction. I'm going to tab until I get lines in the XY direction. From this corner here, I'm going to go straight down in the Y direction about 2 inches. Doesn't have to be exact. And then from this corner, I'm going to go down in the Z direction about 2 inches. In the X direction about 2 inches. And I'm just going to go back up until I lock those 2 together. And then from this line over here, I'm going to go, or from this corner down over here, I'm going to go down in the Y direction about 2 inches. There we are, Y direction about 2 inches. And then this face over here is in the YZ plane. I want to be able to draw in the Z direction, so I need a tab until I can get lines in the Z direction. Right. So I'm just going to lock to that point there. Now I'm going to hit escape, tell it I'm done drawing lines, release the line tool. Zoom in there. I did merge those, right? Yeah, it looks like it. Okay. What do we need to do now? Let's do a few things. I'm going to throw some smart dimensions in here. I'll say this line right there is exactly 2 inches. Notice it was not exactly 2 inches. I got as close as I could, but when I drop that in there, that's 1.9 and some change. It's not, until I throw a smart dimension on it, it is not exactly whatever value I want it to be. Right? It's roughly, but when I throw a smart dimension on it, I actually control exactly what that dimension should be. And I'm going to come on right here. We'll make this 2 inches vertical. And then if everything is in the X and Y and Z directions, then it should fully define. So that means I've got some lines that are not. So if I go around and start clicking on lines here, so this line should be in the, let's set this one along X. Yeah. Should be able to make this one along X. Check. For some reason, that does not look like it's doing that. Let's make this along Z. There we go. So what? Oh, it's a long line. Delete. Delete all. What are you doing? There. Click this line, and we want to make this line along the Y. No. It is upset with me about something. What are you upset about? All right, so let's go view. I want to see all my relations. Display. Huh. Okay, so I'm going to have to, eventually I'm going to have to turn on view all relations. Why is this upset when I say this is a long Y? Interesting. All right, well, I'm going to wrestle with, in a little bit here, I'm going to wrestle with why this is not wanting to fully define on me. It's not showing me everything I want to see. Let's see, display, there we are. Display relations. Okay. They've changed something in the view of this new version, so I'm going to have to wrestle with why it's not showing me everything I want to see. However, what I can show you, what I wanted to show you, is if I exit this three-dimensional sketch. So again, to exit three-dimensional sketch, you have to drag this down and click on the 3D sketch button again. Right? And now I've exited this sketch. And if I rotate, you can see this object is actually three-dimensional as opposed to what I drawn earlier, which we can show that now. Okay. So I've got two sketches in here. This guy back here, sketch one that we drew earlier, that is a two-dimensional sketch. As opposed to the other one, you can see, if I hide this one, you can see this one is actually a three-dimensional sketch. Okay. So what we're going to wrestle with today, we're going to work with today is a tutorial that's actually going to have you making three-dimensional sketches. So we go to Welcome to SolidWorks, and we go to Learn under Tutorials. All right, so what I'm asking you to work on today is we're going to come back later and do some of the basic techniques, but there's a couple here in the advanced techniques I'd like to start us out with. And because this one here is really not that advanced, in my opinion, once you understand the three-dimensional sketching, this tutorial today is really not bad at all. Now, I'm not asking you to do the 3D sketches with planes. You can on your own time if you want. That's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to do this one that says 3D sketching, right? And what we do in this one is it's going to have you make basically an oven rack. It's going to have you make a three-dimensional sketch. It's going to have you make a sweep. It's going to have you do a linear pattern. That's going to have you mirror. Basically, you're going to make half of it and then mirror the entire thing to make a whole, which is a really neat thing to be able to do. So a lot of really cool techniques it's going to show you very quickly. I will try to walk around and catch everybody and make sure you actually have an actual three-dimensional sketch. It's real easy to mess that stuff, right? But I've hopefully at least explained to you a couple of times why it's important. Questions, comments, complaints for me? I'm going to stop recording here.